Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. Prince Arlen stood on the deck of the ship, staring at the horizon, where the sky merged with the deep, dark ocean. Somewhere out there, hidden beneath the waves, lay the answer to his redemption, a city lost to time, submerged in the depths. Elithera. The mere whisper of its name had carried through the halls of forgotten scholars and the taverns of sea captains. It was said to hold the power to reshape kingdoms, and if he could find it, his kingdom would no longer mock his name. He would be more than an exiled prince, but the sea did not care for the ambitions of men. The wind lashed at his face, cold and unrelenting, yet he did not flinch. He couldn't. His father's last words still burned in his ears: "You are no son of mine. Go find your worth elsewhere." Arlen's hands tightened on the ship's railing. He would prove them all wrong. He would return to the kingdom with the power to restore his place, no, to claim his rightful throne. The kingdom needed more than a king. It needed a leader who could wield real power, the kind hidden in the lost city of Elithera. Behind him, the crew moved about their duties. Each of them was here for their own reasons. Kara, the mysterious mage, stood at the stern, her hooded cloak billowing in the wind. She had been the one to lead him to the idea of the lost city in the first place. Her knowledge of ancient magic was unparalleled, and she knew more about the deep sea than any sailor. But there was something in her eyes that made him wonder if her loyalty to the mission was purely professional. Garin, the mercenary, sat sharpening his blade, a man driven by wealth and glory. His eyes followed the movements of the crew with the sharpness of someone always waiting for trouble. And then there was Ira, their navigator, a woman with a past tangled in the ocean's mysteries. She never spoke of it, but Arlen could see the weight of those secrets pulling at her every time she touched the ship's wheel. The ship they sailed on, the Azure Star, was specially built for deep-sea exploration, a marvel of engineering crafted by the finest shipwrights of the Southern Isles. Its hull, reinforced with enchanted steel, was designed to withstand the pressure of the deep and the monsters lurking beneath the waves. Arlen glanced down at the waves below. He could almost feel the city calling him, pulling him closer. He wasn't the only one to feel it. Every night since they had set sail, the crew had been plagued by dreams, visions of the lost city, of strange voices whispering from the deep. But what truly haunted them were the nightmares, visions of monstrous creatures, and a power too great to control. Do you ever wonder if the city is more than just a myth? Ira's voice broke the silence. She had approached without him noticing, her steps as quiet as the sea breeze. He gave her a sideways glance. "You doubt me?" "I doubt everything," she replied, eyes fixed on the horizon. "But I've learned to trust my gut, and it's telling me that what we're looking for, it isn't just a city. It's something far older, far more dangerous." Arlen turned to fully face her, sensing the weight behind her words. "You're saying we shouldn't go?" "No," she shook her head. "I'm saying we should be prepared for more than we've bargained for. The ocean has a way of testing those who seek its treasures." Arlen looked back at the horizon. He knew she was right. But what choice did he have? His future depended on finding that city. "We'll face whatever comes," he said, his voice steady. "There's no turning back." The journey into the deep began the next morning, as the ship plunged into darker waters, away from familiar shores. Each day brought them closer to the unknown, and the crew's unease grew. The sun seemed weaker, as if the ocean was swallowing the light before it could reach them. The nights were worse. Arlen lay in his cabin, unable to sleep, the sound of the waves a constant reminder of the weight pressing down on them. One night, as the ship sailed deeper into the abyss, the first of the sea monsters appeared. It came without warning, a massive shadow rising from the depths, its tentacles coiling around the ship's hull. The crew screamed in terror as the kraken tightened its grip, pulling the azure star downward. "Get ready." Garen's voice boomed over the chaos as he drew his sword, his eyes gleaming with a thrill Arlen had never seen before. For the mercenary, danger was just another way to earn glory. But for the rest of the crew, this was life or death. Kara, her face calm amidst the panic, raised her hands toward the sea, chanting an incantation in a language Arlen didn't understand. A blast of light shot from her fingertips, striking the kraken's tentacles, forcing it to release its grip on the ship. But the creature was far from defeated. Arlen, sword in hand, charged toward the railing, his heart pounding. He had never fought a monster like this before. But he knew there was no running, not if he wanted to lead these people. "Keep it distracted," Kara shouted, her voice barely audible over the howling wind and crashing waves. "I need more time." Garen was already ahead of him, hacking at the tentacles that rose from the water, his sword cutting deep into the monster's flesh. But the kraken was relentless, each wound healing as quickly as it was inflicted. The beast was no ordinary sea creature. It was ancient, like the ocean itself, and it would not be so easily defeated. Arlen fought alongside Garen, striking whenever he could, but it felt like trying to hold back a storm with a shield. The kraken's massive eye surfaced, glaring at them with a malice that sent a chill down Arlen's spine. It was as if the creature knew what they were searching for, and it wanted to stop them before they could find it. Just as hope began to fade, Kara unleashed a final spell, her voice rising above the din. A surge of energy erupted from her hands, striking the kraken with such force that the creature let out a deafening roar. It thrashed violently, its tentacles flailing before it finally sank back into the depths, defeated. For now, the crew stood in stunned silence, the sea once again calm. Arlen wiped the sweat from his brow, breathing heavily. He had survived the battle, but he knew it was only the beginning. The deeper they went, the more dangerous their journey would become. Their next challenge came days later, when the water elementals appeared. Unlike the kraken, these beings did not attack with brute force. They rose from the sea as shimmering figures made entirely of water, their forms constantly shifting, eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. They spoke in a language older than time, their voices like the rush of waves crashing against the shore. "We are the guardians of the deep," one of them said, its voice resonating in Arlen's mind. "You seek the lost city of Elithra, but the secrets you seek are not for mortal hands." Arlen stepped forward, his heart pounding. He had to prove his worth, not only to his crew but to these ancient beings. "We seek knowledge, not destruction. We come in peace." The water elementals did not move, their gazes fixed on him. Finally, one of them spoke. "The city tests all who seek it. Your heart must be pure, or you will be consumed by the ocean's wrath." Arlen nodded, determination hardening his resolve. "I will face whatever test you set before me." The elementals exchanged a glance, their forms swirling like whirlpools. "Very well. But know this, once you enter the city, there is no turning back. You will be judged by the city's magic, and not all who enter leave." Arlen didn't hesitate as the water elementals faded into the sea. He turned to his crew, their faces showing a mixture of fear and determination. Each one of them knew the risk involved in proceeding, but they had come too far to turn back now. Kara stepped closer, her eyes scanning the horizon. "They won't help us. But they won't stop us either. The real test lies ahead, Arlen." He nodded, gripping the hilt of his sword tightly. "We keep moving." The city was only a day's journey further, and the weight of what they were about to face pressed down on the crew. They sailed through waters darker than the night sky, where the ocean seemed to stretch infinitely below them. The deeper they went, the more they felt the pull of Elithera. It wasn't just the promise of power that lured them, it was something older, something primal that none of them could fully understand. By the time they reached the ruins, the sea had grown unnaturally still. There, beneath the surface, they saw it, a sprawling city of towering spires and intricate architecture, preserved by the ocean's cold depths. Even in ruin, Elithera was magnificent. Glowing veins of magic pulsed through the stone structures, illuminating the underwater world with an eerie, otherworldly light. Arlen felt his heart race. They had found it. The lost city. The legends were true, the crew prepared the submersible, their excitement barely contained. This was what they had come for, the chance to unlock the mysteries of an ancient civilization. But as the submersible descended into the depths, Arlen couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The moment they set foot in the city, that feeling intensified. The water around them shimmered with a strange energy, and the ruins felt alive, as if they were breathing with the ocean. The crew moved cautiously through the streets, their footsteps echoing in the silence. Garen kept his sword at the ready, his eyes darting to every shadow. "This place, it's not natural. It's old magic," Kara whispered, running her hand along the walls of a crumbling building. "Powerful. Dangerous." Arlen moved ahead of the group, his gaze fixed on the center of the city where the heart of Elithera was said to lie. His pulse quickened as they approached a massive structure that resembled a temple, its entrance guarded by statues of sea creatures long forgotten by time. The door creaked open with a sound that reverberated through the water. Inside, the temple was vast, its walls lined with intricate carvings that told the story of the city's fall. At the center of the room, suspended above a pool of glowing water, was the heart of Elithera, a massive crystal that pulsed with raw energy. Arlen felt its power immediately, a magnetic force pulling him closer. He stepped toward it, his breath catching in his throat, but Kara's voice stopped him. "Wait." He turned to see her standing at the edge of the room, her face pale. "It's not what you think, Arlen. The power in that crystal, it's not meant for us. It's a curse." Arlen frowned, stepping back from the heart. "What do you mean?" Kara hesitated, her eyes filled with something he hadn't seen before, fear. "This city, it didn't fall. It was abandoned. The magic here, it's too strong. It consumes anyone who tries to claim it." Arlen glanced at the crystal, its light pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. He could feel it, its promise of power, of redemption. But Kara's words lingered in his mind. He had come here to prove himself, to reclaim his honor, but at what cost? Garen scoffed, stepping forward. "You believe that? It's just a rock, Arlen. A powerful one, sure, but we've come this far. We can't leave empty-handed." Ira, who had been quiet for most of the journey, spoke up. "We need to be careful. Something about this place isn't right. The water, it feels alive." The tension in the room grew, and Arlen could see the desperation in their eyes. They had all come here for something, and now that they were standing in front of the heart, none of them wanted to leave without it, but Arlen couldn't shake the feeling that Kara was right. He had felt the pull of the city since the moment they had set sail, and now, standing in its heart, he understood why. This wasn't a place of power, it was a trap. The city didn't want to be found. It wanted to be left alone. Before he could speak, the ground beneath them began to tremble. The pool of water beneath the crystal started to bubble, and a low, rumbling sound echoed through the temple. "Something's coming," Ira whispered, her hand moving to her sword. The water around the crystal began to rise, forming into a towering figure, a water elemental, larger and more powerful than any they had seen before. Its eyes glowed with the same eerie light as the heart, and its voice boomed through the chamber. "You were warned." The elemental struck without hesitation, its massive arms sweeping through the air, sending waves crashing toward them. Arlen barely had time to raise his sword before he was knocked to the ground, the force of the water slamming him into the temple floor. Garen was the first to recover, charging toward the elemental with his sword raised. But his blade passed through the creature's body as if it were made of mist. The elemental retaliated with a powerful blast of water, sending Garen flying across the room. Kara moved to the center of the room, her hands glowing with magic. "I'll try to hold it off." The elemental's gaze shifted to her, and it surged forward, its body twisting and spiraling as it prepared to strike. But Kara was ready. She unleashed a burst of energy, sending a wave of magic crashing into the elemental, forcing it to recoil. "Arlen," she shouted, her voice strained. "You have to destroy the heart. It's the source of its power." Arlen struggled to his feet, his body aching from the impact. He looked at the crystal, its light now blinding. He knew what he had to do. But could he really destroy the one thing that had brought him this far? He hesitated for only a moment before making his decision. With a shout, he raised his sword and charged toward the heart. The elemental roared in fury, but it was too late. Arlen's blade struck the crystal with all his strength, shattering it into 1,000 pieces. The temple shook violently as the crystal's power exploded outward, the force of the blast sending Arlen tumbling backward. The elemental let out a final, agonized scream before dissolving into the water, its form collapsing as the magic that had sustained it vanished. The room grew silent. Arlen lay on the floor, gasping for breath. His body ached, and his head spun, but he was alive. He had done it. The heart of Elithra was gone, and with it, the city's curse. Kara rushed to his side, her face pale but relieved. "You did it." Arlen nodded weakly, his vision blurry. "We need to get out of here." They made their way back to the surface, the city crumbling around them. The ruins of Elithra were sinking, the magic that had preserved them now gone. By the time they reached the Azure Star, the city had vanished beneath the waves once more, leaving nothing but the endless ocean behind. The crew was battered, bruised, and fewer in number than when they had begun. But they had survived. And though Arlen had not claimed the power of Elithra, he had earned something far more valuable, the respect of his crew and the knowledge that true strength did not come from magic or ancient cities. It came from within. As they sailed back toward the horizon, Arlen stood at the bow of the ship, watching the ocean stretch out before him. The waves were calm now, the storm behind them. He had faced the depths, and he had emerged stronger. The journey had changed him. He was no longer the exiled prince searching for redemption. He was something more. And as the sun set on the horizon, Arlen knew that his true journey was just beginning.